Go inside the Huddle with Sky Sports.
Yes, hello, welcome to Inside the Huddle from Super Bowl Media Row in New Orleans, Thursday, and Phoebe Schechter is with me as always, and this is what happens, it just gets busier and busier and busier as we go through the week.
It does. It's getting busier earlier on. I mean, the crowds of people, they're starting to tell us we can't bring coffee and food in from
What was
tomorrow.
that all about?
I don't know. I thought he was being really specific to you. Maybe you've had too much this week.
So I heard him say something about coffee at security to you, and then to me, he just went, no more coffee after today. And I was like, do you mean in here or generally? Because generally is not going to work.
No,
That's not going to work.
That's how we're surviving.
I was very panicky about that. I don't get that. I don't know why Thursday to Friday makes a difference. I've just found out, worrying news, that you haven't had breakfast. Because mean Phoebe comes out when you're hangry.
I know.
Why haven't you had breakfast?
You know, because I really don't have an answer for you, to be honest. There's no breakfast at our hotel. Truthfully, I went to go stand in line to get breakfast, and we hadn't moved. And I thought, I'm going to miss our little team taxi to the convention center, and that would be worse off. So I've had coffee. So this is fueled by energy and excitement and a lot of espresso.
But apparently no more coffee after this.
No more after this.
Did your coffee have 4 shots in it this morning?
Yes, a quad. Yes.
Wow, that is a coach's coffee. That is impressive. Of course, we're counting down to Super Bowl 59, the Chiefs and the Eagles from the Superdome on Sunday. And there are more than 6,000 media members in here. And the players have had to deal with this all week. Today, Thursday, is their last availability. I noticed we've been talking all week about how many times they get put up, and they get put up for an hour at a time. Saquon Barkley's up again. Patrick Mahomes is up again. It's a lot. And I guess you have to just embrace it.
You do have to embrace it. I mean, it's a real opportunity to be able to be in this position, to have this, in terms of the pressure and the excitement around the Super Bowl. But I think for those who've never been to a place like this, you might have your people that are sat up on the benches, and then the rest of the players are just sat in the room at tables. And, it's like you're fishing out there. You just constantly are going to the next person. So it's a lot on all of the players, not just the ones that are being put up too.
So if you're at the podium, you're a good player. So that's a benefit,
right?
Yeah. So
there's a hierarchy here.
You don't want to be that one sitting there with no one interviewing them. Then.
No, but you get some quite good information from those.
Yes, you can. The background stuff's very good from those sort of people. You get a vibe for the team.
Yeah, exactly. I was speaking with a couple of the O-linemen from the Chiefs, and they were saying, they've done a nice job of managing them in terms of the media. Right. And they actually do kind of enjoy it.
People did you hear that? You made a point and people started clapping in the background.
Yes.
They're not connected, but we'll take it. So obviously we are very close now to Super Bowl 59. So we're going to dig into our preview a little bit more. No guests with us today on Radio Row, although never say never.
Anything goes around here. People could just pop up any moment.
You just never know. So let's talk about when the Philadelphia Eagles have the ball. Tomorrow we'll talk about when the Chiefs have the ball. So they have the second-ranked rushing attack in the NFL, the Eagles, 179 yards per game during the regular season. I mean, it's an obvious one, but he's been the talk of the town this week. It starts with Saquon Barkley, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, he's really been the difference maker for this team. He's been the guy that's helped them stay ahead of the sticks, helped them in those positive yardage situations. And when you get into those short yardage situations where it's your 3rd or 4th and 1, the tush push comes into effect. And, they're one of the best teams in the NFL in terms of leading that.
When you look at Barkley, we get drawn by the big runs. 7 touchdown runs of 60 yards or more. That's an NFL record. But he can do all the other stuff as well, can't he? I know he doesn't do the 4th and 1 because they're so good at the tush push, as you say. And Jalen Hurts has, 18 touchdowns on the season. But he can do the stuff between the tackles, can't he?
You're so right. I mean, what he can do between the tackles and his pass protection, that's something that makes him so special because a lot of times if you have an explosive back, and I'll use Derrick Henry, for example, you see the way that he's able to run the ball, but he's not the best pass protector. So then they have to manage a guy like that, bring someone else in. With Saquon, it changes things because you can keep him in for pass pro, or obviously his ability, in the swing passes or check downs and then running the ball. So it takes away any tells that a team may have.
It's been one of the talk of the week has been about everything that Saquon Barkley does. And Nick Sirianni talked about that yesterday, just what a leader he is. We've learned so much about him as a teammate and as a person, but the pass protection, the catching those passes, he prides himself on being a complete back. And you sometimes hear players say that, but they don't actually, it doesn't translate onto the field. He can literally do anything that's asked of him on Super Bowl Sunday.
He can. And I think that speaks to, I know he's a great teammate, but I think it speaks to he wants to be able to be the best version of himself for his team.
Right.
And the time that he puts into studying a lot of pass protection, it's just knowledge, right? It's how much have I watched what the defense does? How much have I been able to do from a understanding, hey, it's this pass pro, I know that my hot or my pickup is here.
It's the toughest thing for a running back, isn't it? Because they all come out of college thinking, I'm just going to run it, throw it to me. And if your quarterback's on his back.
Honestly, running backs do not get enough credit for what they do, because you have to remember, okay, a play call comes in, you've got to know, all right, what is the pass protection? If I don't have somebody extra pressure coming through, what is my route if I have to leave as well?
Right, yeah.
Then if it's a situation where you've got to alert it and change the play, okay, my pass pro might have been a 70. Now I've got to flip it. So now who's my new person I'm looking for? And you feel, I think Saquon's really great for this. I think he feels responsible for the health and safety of Jalen Hurts, and he takes that really personally. And I think that's a good thing, because he's going to do whatever he can to protect his quarterback, Jalen Hurts.
Saquon, so far this season, has rushed for 2,447 yards. That's second most all time. He needs 30 yards to break Terrell Davis's record set in 1998, 2,476 yards. 14 times he's gone over 100 yards in a game this season. That's an NFL record. The point I'm trying to make is we all know he's getting the football. Yeah. We all know he's the main man. Yeah. And he hasn't been stopped all season.
And you're going to go against the Chiefs defense, who we talked about earlier in the week, 57. Am I getting
58,
it right?
58. Oh, so close. 4 running backs that were top 10 running backs. None of them have gained more than 58 yards. So we're practicing. This is practice. You're going to nail that. I'm not even going to
At least I went from 100 to 57.
I'm not even bringing that stat up on Sunday. But when you drop it, I'll be like a proud parent. So look out for that. 58.
Yeah, you'll know. We'll have this moment, the three of us.
I'll just walk out. The chair will be empty.
You've learned nothing this week.
So obviously the Eagles have what's considered to be the best offensive line in the NFL. Yeah. So it's kind of a two-part conversation, really. First, I wonder, looking at it from the outside, whether the Chiefs can match the physicality of that unit. And I don't know, you tell me if they can or they can't, or how they do that. But also, on the occasions when they don't, you better be able to tackle in the open field. So what do you make of that battle in the trenches, first of all?
Well, I mean, this Eagles offensive line has really been such a proud piece, and Coach Stoutland's done a terrific job. I mean, he is one of the greatest at what he does from an offensive line perspective. Yep. The amount of players that I've spoken to, and even just other journalists that are so in love with him and his ability to get the best out of people. I mean, he's one of the guys that really gave Jordan Mailata a chance.
He saw something in Jordan that others didn't see, and allowed him to go from this diamond in the rough to what he is now, one of the best premier left tackles in the NFL.
Precisely. And you can only do that if you're a great teacher.
Right.
And so you've got these guys in front of you that are now the biggest, strongest, fastest in terms of overall as an offensive line. And then you've got great coaching. So they've got great understanding, great technique, great fundamentals. And that's part of what makes them so dangerous. I mean, yes, the athleticism, it just gives them that extra oomph. But this is going to be a battle. And what's going to be really interesting to see is how are they going to move Chris Jones around from Chiefs defensive line perspective? Because you look at a lot of the games the Chiefs have had, and they're using Chris Jones, moving him a little bit first quarter, second quarter, where are we putting him? They're gathering information with him.
Yes.
And how are you going to alter your offensive line play calls? Where are you sliding them based off of where Chris Jones is? So that's why the second half is so important.
Fascinating you say they are moving him around. He moves himself around.
He does.
So he spoke this week here in New Orleans, and he said, I move around the line, kind of see what's what, and Spags trusts me to do that. Now, that's going to be interesting in our studio on Sunday to get Ndamukong King Sue's thoughts on that, because you have to be a certain level of player to be able to say, no, I'm going here, I'm going there. Coach, work around that. But they give him that, and that's trust.
It's such a great point, because you think Ndamukong Suh is one that was able to do that.
Probably very few that get that freedom.
I mean, look at even TJ Watt. He doesn't move.
Right.
You know, Myles Garrett really doesn't do much in terms of, I know being outside, but Micah Parsons, another one that can kind of move where he wants, but very few are able to do that. But it goes and speaks to trust, because They understand the scheme. You've been with the same defensive coordinator for years now. You need to have that trust. And they were talking, I overheard in one of our media conferences with them, Spags is going to bring out something unique at one point.
Right, yeah.
But the team trusts him so much that, this might not be a normal blitz for us.
Feels a bit weird.
It feels a bit uncomfortable.
Right.
But they have so much faith that they're going to be able to make it happen.
I've got a little stat for you here when we talk about the open field tackling. So Leo Chanel, the linebacker for the Chiefs, has more forced fumbles this year, 3, than missed tackles. So he's the only starting linebacker who's got more than 50 tackles to have that few missed. That speaks to...
Wow.
What is it that will make a team really good at tackling? Because tackling has been an issue across the league. But you see screen passes that work against other teams that get shut down against the Chiefs. And sometimes I'll say it to you and J-Bell without even going into the technicalities. I just say they don't give you the cheap stuff. They don't give you the free stuff. You have to earn everything against the Chiefs, even if you think you are at an advantage with Saquon and the offensive line. This defense might still have its moments. Yeah,
it will. And and that's that's a phenomenal stat. He must be the only one in the league with only 2.
It's crazy.
That just is unheard of. It's almost impossible to be perfect like that.
Yeah.
But when you look at a tackle, you're looking at angle, pursuit, the clamp on the other side in terms of your hands coming in and pulling that person in. Because how many times do we talk about arm tackles? So to be able to get about 5 different measurements right within a tackle, that is an incredible
Just
stat.
speaks to the detail of this team, doesn't it?
Precisely.
With the Chiefs, how much they leave no stone unturned. There are no shortcuts.
Yeah, and that's the great word, detail. And again, it goes back to very clear communication on what the expectation is, what are the techniques. Because keep in mind, you're going to have different techniques in different situations.
Right.
A linebacker, for example, you're going to have one technique when you're meeting them in the gap as opposed to a lateral outside pursuit. Right. So you've got to be able to do that. And then I'm going to ask you to pass, be able to pass drop and get underneath the routes and understand everything that's going on in coverage. I still actually can't get over that stat. I'm almost like speechless.
You can have that one for Sunday as well.
I won't get that one wrong. I got you.
3 and 2 is all you got to remember there. So the Philadelphia passing attack averaged 188 yards per game, 29th in the NFL. They're the first bottom 5 passing attack to reach the Super Bowl since the Miami Dolphins in the 1982 season. So my question here, and I think it's the question all along, is can they pass when they need to, or is there an issue with their passing game? Because obviously they've had Saquon Barkley, who they've not quite run into the ground. But Nick Sirianni spoke at his press conference yesterday and said, we will give him the football as many times as we need to win. And that's just what it's taken to win. Is there a problem with the Eagles' passing attack, or can they do it when they need to?
I think they can do it when they need to, but they've just not needed to this whole season, essentially. Yeah. And why would you when you've got Saquon Barkley? Yeah. And the fact that they've been able to stay true to that element of, we're going to run the ball. Let's continue to run the ball. Yeah. Saquon Barkley is more than capable. And I would say the NFC Championship game is the best version of Jalen Hurts and this passing game that we've seen in a long time. Yeah. So I think they have the ability to come up big in those moments. And, they're still practicing this stuff all week long. It's not like they're not catching footballs all week, right? It's just when it comes to the game plan, but they've got unselfish guys who are happy to block out there in open field, receivers in particular, which, some of them don't want to necessarily do that. So it's great to see that they can do everything. I do have faith.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts had 131 yards in the first round of the playoffs, passing yards, 128 in the second round against the Rams, and then 246. He said they took the straitjacket off a little bit. Yeah. A.J. Brown went from 3 catches the first 2 games to 6 for close to 100. So I think you're right. I think it's there if it's needed. And I think it's very interesting this, because I think we feel that Philadelphia are more of a running team this time, and Jalen's been drawn right in and held back. I looked at the numbers the last time these teams played 2 years ago. In the first 2 playoff games leading into the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts had 275 passing yards total.
Oh, wow.
So he was in the same situation, and then he had a 300-yard passing game. So I think he can do it. I think they've got the weapons to do it, haven't they?
Yeah, I think they do too, and they're going to want to challenge this Chiefs defense. It's all about tactics. And if you're the Eagles, what do you think the Chiefs are going to do? They're going to try and stop the run. Right. So you're going to have some creative pass plays ready to go. Yeah. So they already know. That's why this is that aggressive chess with humans.
Yeah.
I have to think 5 steps ahead to think, all right, well, what is Steve Spagnuolo going to want to do?
Right.
How does his brain operate? You've got enough film of each other. You understand tendencies. You know he can be a bit creative. So making sure that I have answers to the questions that he's posing.
Whenever we look at the Chiefs' defensive backs, do you factor in the obviously covering the A.J. Browns, the Devontae Smiths, the Dallas Goddards, but it's more than that. It's what they do when they're moving forward as well.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about Trent McDuffie, for example. I mean, he's one of the stars of the show in terms of more open field tackling, their ability to come down field and really fill those gaps. I mean, we got to remember that all these little people, that's who you want to challenge, right? You want to force them to tackle. That kind of changed a lot in the past couple of years, where it really became more of that lateral outside, let's force people into these situations where you're one-on-one with a corner. I mean, we heard Malcolm Butler talking about it yesterday in the Super Bowl game. Like, if I'm Marshawn Lynch, I probably run it in to challenge Malcolm Butler, but instead they pass it. So, you know, I think that there's definitely that element of these DBs are going to have to fly downfield. So what is that play action? What is that RPO? How do you just get them to bite for that one little second and take advantage of them for that ill discipline, just for that moment?
We'll save our predictions till tomorrow.
Smart.
And we'll talk about the Eagles more completely tomorrow. But when I think of this offense, and just by adding in Saquon Barkley, this is a completely different proposition, isn't it, for the Chiefs from 2 years ago? And even 2 years ago, the Eagles scored 35 points.
Yeah, I mean, again, it came down to that holding penalty at the end of the game. And we don't always say that, right? But it came down to that where they led to the field goal, you know, James Bradbury holding call, and then the field goal based off the back of that. But this Eagles team is so much different than they were. 10 points up at the half back then. And I still feel like they have a much stronger proposition. And I keep coming back to it. You look at the Chiefs and their coordinators, they've had continuity for 4 years plus, you know, with different coordinators, head coach for the same amount of time, for a longer time. But then the Eagles, first year Kellen Moore offensive coordinator, first year Vic Fangio defensive coordinator. I mean, what they're
Before that, they lost Steichen, didn't they, after the Super Bowl last time?
Yep.
So they've been rotating through. Glad you mentioned Kellen Moore while we're here in New Orleans, because he could be the next head coach of the Saints. That's the talk, and obviously they're waiting until after the Super Bowl. But what they've done with him coming in was what they couldn't replace last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's been actually really nice to see how Kellen Moore has built over the years. I mean, you saw when he was with Dallas and with Dak Prescott, we talked about last year, not this season, the season last year, when Dak Prescott was playing at an MVP level. I mean, he was the best version of himself. So it makes sense that we are, Kellen Moore doing a great job having that communication piece with Jalen Hurts, because that's who you have to really have that connection piece with. And, you know, really exciting opportunity if he could become the next head coach of the Saints. He doesn't even need to go home. He can just walk down the road and
stay here.
Yeah, exactly.
Advantage Eagles offense or Chiefs defense?
Ooh.
That's a tough one, isn't it? This whole thing feels like it's balanced right on the edge. This whole game, everything.
You know, and that's why I feel like I keep going back and forth, you know, in terms of, well, you can talk yourself either way in this. And I love the Eagles offense. I think that they could be really exciting and do a lot. I read this really interesting stat, though. The Chiefs have stopped, and especially in the Bills game.
58 yards.
No, I was going to say look at this man. He's trying to steal my stats. I don't even get one stat. He doesn't even let me have anything around here.
Hang on, wait.
Okay, guess. Oh, okay.
No, I'm not guessing. I'm
fine. I was going to say 4 of 6 of the tush push, they had stopped. That's huge.
Yes, Josh Allen.
Against Josh Allen.
Wow.
How does that work? And I know that's a very different tush push. This is a different version of organized mass in the Eagles, but it'll be very interesting to see what happens, because they rely on that so heavily.
Key. Well, they play with that in mind, knowing they're going to go for it and have that.
Exactly.
Good stat.
Thank you.
Stat. I like
Thank
that.
you, Neil.
Did that sound condescending? Because it wasn't meant to be. That was genuinely a good stat.
See what I have to put up with all the time, guys?
It was a good stat.
He had sleep. I haven't eaten. I'm still the nicer one.
Let's finish off a little bit of finish that sentence to finish this episode. So I'm fascinated. There's a lot going on around here, and there's a lot going on with us, or doing these things, but here, there, and everywhere. So for you, Phoebe, a skill I learned this week is
how to play the drums with a New Orleans brass band.
Did you?
I did. And I also I don't even know what you call it. I had to do the little dance. I had the umbrella,
Oh,
and I
like
did
the
a little
umbrella.
dance. It looked better than what's happening right now.
So there
but...
used to be, back in the day, you're too young for this, the Saints were terrible for years, and then they got really good in the 80s. And their owner, Tom Benson, used to come down to the sidelines at the end of every win with the umbrella like you had and dance up and down the sidelines to when the Saints go marching in.
No way.
So you are now like NFL royalty.
They
like
were
Tom
playing the
Benson.
Saints go marching in
So
as well at
there
the
you
same
go.
time. That's it.
So how did you get on with the drums?
Well, I had one big drum, and that was, I could do that one.
Yeah.
Then it came to the smaller drum, and I was like, so am I doing it like this? And he was like, and that,
Oh, that was enough.
Yeah.
Told you everything you
I
needed
was
to
like,
know.
yeah, okay. I guess that's the end of my drumming skill set.
So to rephrase, so a skill you learned or just something you had to go at?
All right, buddy. Big drums I can do. Are you sure you've eaten?
I know, not enough.
Not
Clearly
enough.
not enough.
Neil's a spicy little man today.
Do you have finished that sentence
I
for me?
do. Don't
Okay,
you worry.
good. I'm a bit worried now.
Something I learned about Nick Sirianni is...
So I really enjoyed Nick Sirianni. So is that he is not as controversial as I think people make out to be.
Okay.
So I think people
what do you
make
mean?
out that he gets in the face of defensive linemen during
Yeah.
games. He gets, like, people paint him as being perfect for Philadelphia. You know, he's got a bit of an edge. He's, he can clash with his players. He certainly wears his heart on his sleeve. 2 years ago and this week, I've sat and listened to his press conferences. I find him to be fascinating, really thoughtful, had a great journey to where he is. I think he delivers great messages to his team. We talked about those yesterday, tough, together, detailed. I find him to be completely different from how, if I'd never met him, I would have a completely different view of Nick Sirianni.
Okay.
And that's the value of coming to these things, sitting and listening to these coaches talk. I think the Eagles are in really good hands.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really nice that you're able to kind of share a side of him that most people would never see.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're right. Everyone thinks that he's just kind of this rowdy, the garbage man of Philadelphia
Right.
here.
Yeah.
So it's nice that he is actually, you can see how he's such a great leader for this team.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up this edition of Inside the Huddle. Phoebe's to-do list: have breakfast,
Yeah.
punch me in the face.
Oh, I wouldn't do that.
Kick me in the shins?
Kick me in the shins.
I knew that'd be
That's
something.
more height efficient for me.
Okay, perfect. That's less trouble for you. So,
Yeah, exactly.
thank you, Phoebe. It's been great.
Thank you.
We'll be back on Friday to look at when the Kansas City Chiefs have the football, and we'll talk about the Chiefs' offense, the Eagles' defense. We're building up to Super Bowl 59. We're on air at 10 o'clock on Sunday, February the 9th. The Eagles and the Chiefs from the Superdome. We'll be back tomorrow. Bye for now.
Go inside the huddle with Sky Sports.